Karen's eyes narrowed as she stared down the small fishing boat in front of her, her hand gripping the Impound tow truck keys with white knuckles. Little did she know, the boat's owner was no ordinary citizen, but a powerful state senator with a penchant for keeping his wealth well hidden. As the standoff began, the stage was set for an explosive confrontation that would shake the very foundation of their quiet coastal town. Jack gripped the wheel of his weather-worn fishing boat, his heart pounding as he watched the Impound truck pull up to the dock. He knew this day would come eventually, but he never imagined it would be at the hands of his longtime nemesis, Karen, the overzealous code enforcement officer. "Hey, Karen," he called out, forcing a casual tone. "What's the problem this time?" Karen's lips pressed into a thin line as she approached, her eyes sweeping over the boat with disdain. "This boat is in violation of at least 3 local ordinances, Jack. Time to tow it in." Jack felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back. "Now hold on a minute. I've got all the proper documentation." "I don't care what paperwork you've got." Karen cut him off, jabbing a finger towards the boat. "That thing is an eyesore and a hazard. It's coming with me." Jack's jaw tightened as he considered his options. He couldn't let Karen impound his boat. It was his livelihood, his pride and joy. But going up against the determined code enforcer often felt like a losing battle. "Look, Karen, I know we've had our differences, but this boat is all I've got. Can't we work something out?" Jack pleaded, hating the desperation in his own voice. Karen's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Jack thought he saw a flicker of satisfaction cross her face. "You had your chance, Jack. Now it's time to pay the piper." As the tow truck driver began hitching up the boat, Jack felt a surge of panic. "Wait. At least let me get my stuff off first." Karen regarded him with disdain. 5 minutes. That's it. Jack hurried aboard, his mind racing. He had to find a way to stop this. But as he frantically gathered his fishing gear, a sudden realization struck him. Tucked inside the glove compartment was the boat's registration, and the name printed on it was not his own. A grin slowly spread across Jack's face. Maybe, just maybe, he had a trump card to play after all. Jack hurried back to the dock, his heart pounding with newfound hope. As Karen watched impatiently, he held up the boat's registration for her to see. "Karen, you might want to take a closer look at this." Karen snatched the document from his hand, her brow furrowing as she scanned the name printed on it. State Senator Robert Simmons. She glared at Jack, suspicion etched across her features. "What kind of game are you playing?" Jack leaned back, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. "No game, Karen. That boat is registered to the good senator himself. I doubt you want to mess with him." Karen's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Jack thought he saw a flicker of uncertainty in her expression. But just as quickly, her jaw tightened, and she shoved the registration back at him. "I don't care if it's registered to the governor himself," she snapped. "That boat is still in violation of our local ordinances, and I'm gonna see to it that it's impounded." Jack's stomach dropped as he watched the tow truck driver continue his work. "Come on, Karen, you can't be serious. This is state senator's property we're talking about here. You really want to risk going up against him?" "I'm not afraid of some high and mighty politician," Karen retorted, her voice dripping with disdain. "Rules are rules, Jack, and I'm gonna enforce them, no matter who owns this boat." As the tow truck began to lift the boat onto the flatbed, Jack felt a surge of desperation. He had to find a way to stop this, and fast. Glancing around, his eyes landed on a group of bystanders who had gathered to watch the spectacle. An idea began to form in his mind. "Hey, you all hear that?" he called out, his voice carrying over the rumble of the truck's engine. "Karen here is trying to impound the boat of a state senator. You think that's right?" The bystanders murmured in confusion, and Jack seized the opportunity. This is just another example of Karen abusing her power and going after the little guy. Are you all going to let her get away with this? As the crowd began to voice their disapproval, Karen's face flushed with anger. "Shut up, Jack. This is none of your business." But the damage was done. The bystanders were already closing in, their shouts and jeers echoing across the docks. Jack watched with satisfaction as Karen's confident facade began to crumble, realizing that this confrontation was quickly spiraling out of her control. Karen's face twisted with fury as the crowd closed in, their angry shouts ringing in her ears. She glared at Jack, who stood there with a smug grin, clearly relishing her predicament. "You think you're so clever, don't you, Jack?" she spat. "But this isn't over. I'm going to make sure you pay for this stunt." Jack simply shrugged, his expression unperturbed. "Hey, you're the one trying to impound a state senator's boat. I'm just giving the people what they want to see. A little public accountability." Karen gritted her teeth, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. She knew she was rapidly losing control of the situation, and the thought of backing down in front of this crowd made her blood boil. But the reality was, she couldn't afford to risk the political fallout that would come from impounding a senator's property. Glaring daggers at Jack, Karen turned to the tow truck driver. "Cut it loose," she barked. "We're done here." The driver hesitated, looking from Karen to the angry mob surrounding them. "You sure about that, ma'am?" "I said cut it loose," Karen snapped, "before I have you both thrown in jail for obstruction." Muttering under his breath, the driver lowered the boat back onto the water, the chains rattling as he disconnected them. Karen turned on her heel, stalking away from the scene with her head held high, even as the jeers and laughter of the crowd followed her. Jack watched her go, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. He had won this round, but he knew Karen wouldn't let it go so easily. She was like a dog with a bone. Once she had her sights set on something, she wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. Sighing, Jack turned his attention to the boat, running his hands along the weathered hull. He still needed to get his fishing gear off, and who knew when Karen might try this stunt again. He had to be prepared. As he worked, a nagging thought began to creep into the back of his mind. What if this wasn't just about the boat? What if there was something bigger going on here, something that Karen was desperately trying to uncover? The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Whatever was going on, one thing was clear. Jack was now caught in the middle of a game he didn't fully understand. And if he wasn't careful, he might just get caught in the crossfire. As Jack finished loading his fishing gear back onto the boat, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in the pit of his stomach. Something about this whole situation wasn't right, and the more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that there was more to it than just a simple code violation. His mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. Karen had been after him for years, constantly finding petty excuses to harass him and his fellow fishermen. But this time, it felt different. The way she had so stubbornly insisted on impounding the boat, even after learning it belonged to a state senator, was out of character for the usually cautious code enforcer. Jack leaned against the boat, gazing out at the horizon. What was Karen really after? Was it possible that this was all just a front for something more sinister? The thought made his skin crawl. Just then, a familiar voice called out from behind him. "Jack, my friend. I heard about the little showdown with Karen. Quite a spectacle, I must say." Jack turned to find his old friend, Senator Robert Simmons, striding towards him, a twinkle in his eye. "Senator," Jack greeted him, a wave of relief washing over him. "I'm glad you're here. I have a feeling Karen's not going to let this go so easily." Simmons chuckled, clapping Jack on the back. "Oh, I have no doubt about that. That woman is as stubborn as a mule." His expression grew more serious. "But you shouldn't have to worry about her anymore, my friend. I'll be sure to have a little chat with her superiors, make sure she knows her place." Jack felt a twinge of guilt. He hadn't meant to drag the senator into this mess, but he was grateful for the help. "I appreciate that, Senator, but I can't help but wonder. Why would Karen be so determined to impound your boat? It just doesn't seem to add up." Simmons' brow furrowed, a contemplative look crossing his face. You know, that's a good question. Karen has always been a thorn in my side, but this feels different somehow. He paused, his gaze fixing on the horizon. I think it's time I had a little chat with her myself. Jack watched as the senator strode off, his mind whirling. This was getting more complicated by the minute, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was caught in the middle of something much bigger than he could have imagined. As the sun began to set over the docks, Jack felt a sense of unease settle over him. Whatever was going on, he knew one thing for certain. The battle with Karen was far from over. The next morning, Jack was up before the sun, his mind still reeling from the confrontation with Karen. As he prepared his boat for the day's fishing, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in the pit of his stomach. Just as he was about to cast off, he spotted a familiar figure approaching. It was Senator Simmons, his stride purposeful and his expression unreadable. "Senator," Jack greeted him, trying to keep his voice steady. "I didn't expect to see you here so early." "Jack, my friend," Simmons replied, his tone cordial but with an undercurrent of seriousness. "I'm afraid I have some rather disturbing news to share with you." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "What is it?" Simmons let out a heavy sigh. "It seems our friend Karen has been using her position to conduct some rather unsavory activities. I've been investigating her for some time now, but last night I uncovered something that has me deeply concerned." Jack's mind raced, trying to piece together the implications of the senator's words. What kind of activities are we talking about here? "Embezzlement, bribery, even extortion," Simmons said, his brow furrowing. "It appears she's been using her position of power to line her own pockets, and she's not afraid to step on a few toes to do it." Jack felt a knot form in the pit of his stomach. "And you think she was after my boat for some reason?" Simmons nodded gravely. "I believe so. It's possible she was trying to use the impound as leverage, or perhaps she was simply trying to send a message. Either way, I can assure you that she will be held accountable for her actions." Jack's mind reeled, trying to process this newfound information. "So what does this mean for me?" "It means you need to be extremely cautious, my friend," Simmons said, his voice lowered. "Karen is a dangerous woman, and she's not going to take kindly to having her schemes uncovered. You may very well find yourself in her crosshairs." Jack swallowed hard, his grip tightening on the boat's wheel. "I appreciate the warning, Senator, but I can't just sit back and let her get away with this. What can I do to help?" Simmons regarded him with a solemn expression. "I'm afraid this is a battle you'll have to fight on your own, Jack. But know that I will be here to support you, however I can." With that, the senator turned and headed back towards his car, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, Jack felt a newfound sense of determination settle over him. Whatever came his way, he was ready to face it head-on. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Jack. Try as he might, he couldn't focus on his fishing, his mind constantly consumed by the revelations from his conversation with Senator Simmons. As he pulled his boat back into the dock, he spotted Karen, standing a short distance away and glaring in his direction. Their eyes met, and Jack felt a chill run down his spine. There was a calculating intensity in her gaze that he had never seen before. Steeling himself, Jack approached her cautiously. "Karen." "Jack," she replied, her voice dripping with disdain. "I suppose the senator has been running his mouth, huh?" Jack felt his hackles rise, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Look, Karen, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but—" "Game?" Karen interrupted, her eyes narrowing. "This isn't the game, Jack. This is about justice." She took a step closer, her finger jabbing accusingly towards his chest. "You think you can just waltz around, breaking the rules and getting away with it? Well, not on my watch." Jack felt a surge of anger, but he fought to keep it in check. "Justice? Is that what you call extorting money and abusing your power?" Karen's face flushed with rage. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me, Karen, Jack shot back. Senator Simmons told me all about your little schemes. You're nothing but a common criminal, hiding behind a badge. For a moment, Karen looked unnerved, but she quickly regained her composure. So the old man is calling in his favors, is he? Well, let me tell you something, Jack. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. With that, she turned on her heel and stormed off, leaving Jack feeling more unsettled than ever. He knew he had to be careful. Karen was clearly a dangerous adversary, and she wasn't going to go down without a fight. As the sun began to set, Jack made his way to his small apartment, his mind racing. He needed to figure out his next move, but he couldn't shake the sense that he was in over his head. Whatever happened next, he knew it was going to be a battle for survival. The next morning, Jack woke with a start, his heart pounding. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As he stepped outside, he immediately knew his instincts were right. His beloved fishing boat was missing from its usual spot on the dock. Panic gripped him as he scanned the area, his eyes desperately searching for any sign of the vessel. And then he saw it, a tow truck disappearing down the road, his boat hitched precariously to the back. Hey, stop! Jack yelled, sprinting after the truck. But it was no use. The vehicle quickly disappeared around the corner, leaving Jack standing there, clutching the empty air. With a sinking feeling, he knew exactly who was behind this. Karen. Fury coursed through his veins as he raced back to his apartment, determined to get to the bottom of this. He had to find a way to get his boat back, no matter what it took. As he burst through the door, his eyes landed on a small, unassuming envelope sitting on his kitchen table. Hands trembling, he tore it open, and what he found inside made his blood run cold. It was a photograph, a grainy image of his boat, now impounded in a junkyard, surrounded by a dozen other vehicles. Scrawled across the bottom in a messy scrawl were the words, "This is just the beginning." Jack stared at the image, his mind racing. Karen had clearly gone to extreme lengths to get her hands on his boat, and the threat implied in the message sent a chill down his spine. Steeling himself, he grabbed his car keys and raced out the door, determined to track down his boat and confront Karen once and for all. He knew he was playing a dangerous game, but the thought of losing his beloved vessel, his livelihood, was too much to bear. As he sped towards the junkyard, a single thought consumed him. Whatever it took, he was going to get his boat back, even if it meant taking on the wrath of the powerful code enforcement officer. Jack's heart pounded as he pulled up to the junkyard, his eyes fixed on the familiar shape of his boat, now surrounded by a towering pile of rusted-out vehicles. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself and pushed through the entrance, determined to confront Karen and get his prized possession back. As he approached the impound lot, he spotted Karen standing nearby, a triumphant grin on her face. Anger flared within him, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Karen, what the hell is this?" he demanded, his voice laced with fury. Karen's smile only grew wider. "Why, Jack? I'm simply enforcing the law. Your boat was in violation, and now it's been impounded, just like it should be." "The hell it should be," Jack shot back. "This is harassment, plain and simple. You've gone too far this time." Karen's eyes narrowed, her expression turning cold. "I'm simply doing my job, Jack. And if you have a problem with that, then I suggest you take it up with my superiors." Jack clenched his fists, his nails digging into the palms of his hands. "Your superiors, huh? Well, maybe I'll do just that. Because I know all about your little schemes, Karen. The embezzlement, the bribery. I know it all." For a moment, a flicker of panic crossed Karen's face, but she quickly regained her composure. "I have no idea what you're talking about. And even if I did, who's going to believe the word of a lowly fisherman over a respected code enforcement officer?" Jack's jaw tightened. "Maybe the state senator whose boat you just impounded, that's who." Karen's eyes widened, and Jack knew he had struck a nerve. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "Try me," Jack shot back, his voice dripping with defiance. "I'm not going to let you get away with this, Karen. Not this time." The two stood locked in a tense standoff, the air thick with the weight of their unspoken confrontation. And then, in a sudden move, Karen reached into her pocket and pulled out a set of keys. "Fine," she spat, tossing them towards Jack. "Take your damn boat and get out of my sight. But mark my words, this isn't over." Jack caught the keys with a triumphant grin, his heart pounding with a mix of relief and adrenaline. As he watched Karen stalk away, he knew that this was just the beginning of a much larger battle. But for now, he was content to have his boat back, a small victory in a war that was far from over.